Rejoice together, for the time we are living in is the time for reclaiming our own. Brothers, listen to me, to me, to me.
Did you know that guys walk here? Did you know guys walk here?
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is D Moss, and today I will be hosting On Deck Live. We have alternating hosts. We have alternating panelists. No 2 weeks are ever the same. But one thing that is always consistent is my brother, Hanif Nelson, Professor Hanif Nelson. Good afternoon. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Good evening.
All right. Then we have my other brother, Tracy Chappelle. He is the curator for the Springfield Stone Soul Festival, one of the longest running festivals in New England. And we're going to talk about that. Today, we're going to talk about the cultural relevancy of music festivals, community festivals, arts type venues for performance arts, music venues, whatever the case may be. We want to talk about the relevancy as we talk about driving social agendas. What is the role of the actual venues? What is the role of the artists who hit every artist who hit on stage? We're going to talk about that stuff today. There is a social, political, and spiritual significance to the things that we do. And oftentimes we take it for granted. We go to events, we have no idea that what people are actually doing is trying to engineer you into seeing the world a little bit differently. Sometimes we walk into an event and we think it's strictly about the music until you hear the music, until you hear the direction that folks are going in. So today we're going to talk about that. Again, we have an artist, we have a curator, and we're going to talk about it. Gentlemen, let's get started with Tracy. Tracy, let's talk about the Stone Soul Festival, what it is, a little bit of the history. Let's get into that. I was hoping to have a few other curators on with us today talking about the festivals and events and that they produce. But looks like it's just us, and that's how it works sometimes. So we're going to have fun. We're going to roll with it. It's what we do. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tracy Chappelle.
All right, D, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you for having me. Peace to you, brother Hanif. Pleasure meeting you. But Stone Soul, as a festival, has been around since 1989. But the spirit of Stone Soul was really birthed in 1968. Came out of the Harambee Festival that started in 1968 with the great Jay Griffin being one of the founders of the original Harambee Festival here in Springfield. But then in 1989, he started the Stone Soul Festival. So we're going into our 32nd year as a festival, and we're the largest Black festival here in New England. So that's something that we, as a community should be very proud of here in the city of Springfield, is that we have the largest Black festival in the area. And, again, Stone Soul, when people think of Stone Soul, they only think about the festival. However, we have several different layers to what we do at as Stone Soul Inc. We have a whole historic component with the Brace Brigade, where we do reenactments for like Civil War reenactments. We have a brigade of U.S. Black Buffalo soldiers that participate in these recreations, what have you. But Stone Soul is also a place where it's always been a showcase for local talent. So in addition to the historic component, we also we're a platform where local talent can perform in what we call the Springfield's Got Talent segment of the festival. And again, I mean, the spirit of Stone Soul is community. We are a community-based organization, 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to give back to the citizens of Springfield. The communities that we serve here in Springfield, preferably the Black and the brown communities. But we, again, we have a very rich history, and we are in a stage right now where we're kind of passing the torch in order to maintain and pass on that legacy. Um, so it's a pleasure for me to come on board and work with the great Jay Griffin, and again in curating and keeping the spirit of Stone Soul alive.
Okay, that's what's up. So I heard a rumor somewhere about the Stone Soul. It said originally when it started, the name Stone Soul came from the song by the Fifth Dimension.
Absolutely,
Stone Soul Picnic.
that's true. There's nothing but truth behind it, and there, Jay has, I've had the pleasure of sitting with him and just hearing those stories of like how Stone Soul started. It started with a group of friends wanting to have a picnic, and I believe the first one that they did was at Forest Park. But again, it started with a group of friends, and then from there it just evolved into what it is today. But you're right. You're absolutely right. That rumor is true. that was the theme song for the first reunion.
Right. And I know
the first Stone Soul.
And I know in the early years, I think they were also raising funds for single parents or single mothers or something like that. Clothing, yes. All types of stuff. It's like over the years I've heard bits and pieces, and it's crazy because when people talk about Stone Soul, they focus more on the gathering than what's happening Friday and Saturday night for the concerts.
Right. They don't see what and we still do that. We still are out in the community doing a lot of things behind the scenes, just in the community, helping, like you said, single mothers or, just, with COVID, last year and even into this year, we've been out there helping, our community. But, we do lots of things behind the scenes that people don't necessarily see or hear about.
Okay, so it's not necessary. It's not just a festival, not just an annual event. It's really a social movement. It's a social movement organization. Am I incorrect?
Absolutely. And this year, we're trying to really drive that, because there's a lot of people that don't know about that aspect of Stone Soul. So we want to make that more public than we've done in the past, okay. And we want to, my motto has always been "Together we win." So we're looking to build with the community, you know what I mean, and to be able to bring more, services and opportunities into the community as well. So, yeah, you're right in saying that we're more than just the festival. We're definitely a movement.
Okay, Hanif, any questions? Anything you want to add? I mean, and then I would also want to hear from you, Hanif, as an artist. Performer, and also, I know you're also a curator in your own right. Because I know when I think of the open mic music session, what do you call it? The jam
sessions,
community school. That was you.
Yeah, I was definitely part of that. And prior to COVID, I was running the Monday Night Jazz at Black Eye Sally's.
Right.
Before COVID decided to tell all of us stay at home for a while.
Okay.
I think what's interesting listening to the history of the Stone Soul Festival, it's been many, many years, but I've performed at that festival before, and I remember seeing a bunch of different things there. But I think what's interesting about hearing the history of this is if you look at what was said, and you look at the arrival of enslaved people into this country and what they did and how they did, whenever they were able to, a lot of what they did and how they did for themselves mimics what I just heard concerning the Stone Soul Festival. And I think what we have to understand about these festivals and curating these things, especially when we talk about like curating these festivals or these events, I mean, I think a lot of the times people think it's just, I'm going to find a bunch of acts, I book them, I pay them, and that's it. And they don't understand. I let two people prior to COVID curate the series that I do for 1 month. And they were like, I don't want to do this all year.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't understand it's more than just getting people. Right. If you have it, and it depends on how your festival is set up, how your event is set up. Is it set up in partnership with an organization, a restaurant, a venue, or with the city, in the case of having to get permits for parks and things like that? There's a lot of relationships you have to nurture to make and curate these things successfully. And you also have to you know, if we're going to be honest about it, you have to have a level of transparency that you would never normally need to have when it comes to certain things. You have to have a level of like, that's none of your business, you know, for other things. And at the same time, you also have to, when it comes to curating, you have to turn off your personal bias. And I think a lot of times, you know, we see festivals that have happened where someone's personal bias is what programs the festival. But when you want to really get a good festival going, it's going to always be about what's going to be good for those that are attending, not what's going to be good for what I want to hear. Sure, when I'm running what I do, you know, a lot of the times I book things that I love to hear, but a lot of the times I book things I don't love to hear because it's not about me, it's about them. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost in the curating aspect of that a lot of people who only see the end result, they don't understand that. And I think it's important to say that so that those that are listening, as these things start returning, you know, these things start happening, like you stop putting some of your preconceived notions, you know, out there about, well, this one only got this because of this, or this one only got this because of that. Well, that's probably not true everywhere. And even if it is, so what? Let's not actually go there and do what we're there to do. And let's not take away from the significance of what this is. Like hearing this history about Stone Soul, I mean, I don't think people really understand the significance of that. And I think it's important for that. And I'm glad that Tracy was here to talk about that, because I don't think they really understand the significance and, for that matter, the historical things that feed into what was done. I mean, it's still in our DNA and we're still doing it today. So I just wanted to add it to that. I just want to add that to this whole Stone Soul conversation.
Right. And I know, you know, I worked, oh my God, for the last 13 years, I've worked with Andrew Keaton, and we've worked along with Rob in the later years, organized the Springfield Indie Soul Festival. We're going into our 13th year. And Hanif, to challenge just a little bit on what you said, sometimes if I had to go by what the audience wanted, the music would be so integrated right now and it would be so watered down. We like to focus on pure soul music in terms of what we do. So there are times when you really can't go with the popular opinion or what the people think they want, because sometimes it's like you're an educator. If you taught your curriculum in accordance to what the students wanted, there's no telling what you'd be teaching. Curating festivals, curating events, sometimes I think sometimes we have to show some leadership and give people, you know, the type of music that they really need and not necessarily what they want.
No. To clarify, what I said isn't what they want. What I said is that we have to curate to what's good for the people.
Okay, here we go.
Which is different than what they want, because what they want isn't always good for them.
So
that's what I mean when I say it. So we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
You know, we're definitely saying the same thing. And I think
there's two sides to that coin too, though. You know what I mean? Sometimes as a curator, I'll say in the position of Stone Soul, you know, Stone Soul again has been around for some time, and because you know, music has evolved and has changed, you know, because we support local artists, we want to make sure that the festival kind of evolves with that too, sonically. You know, the music that you know, of the artists that we're, you know, allowing to showcase their talent. So, you know, for, you know, traditionally, Stone Soul has just been blues, jazz, R&B, and not necessarily hip hop. But, you know, this year we felt the need to include hip hop because it is part of Black culture. You know, again, we want, you know, the artists that are performing to have, you know, to be, you know, the message that you know, and that goes for all artists, regardless of what genre of music. We want their music to be in line with the mission and the, you know, and the spirit of Stone Soul. So, you know, again, there's just like two sides of that coin. Again, when you're doing this curation piece. And
just a little pushback, Tracy, I don't even think there's two sides. I think when you look at the evolution of hip hop into what it is now, when you look at there's the thing, there's hip hop in its pure form, and then we got rap music, which is what those old white dudes in the boardroom sell to us on a regular basis. So we start talking about cats who every other word is F this, F that, B's, hoes, NIGGAAs and all this other stuff. That's not hip hop. When I think of hip hop, I'm thinking of cats who are like dropping that street knowledge and they're talking about their, the abrasive side of life, them black streets that most people won't go down. And they can tell that story without denigrating, black women or denigrating themselves or glorifying certain things. You dig what I'm saying? So it's hip hop. We do hip hop. We brought in Brand Nubian. We brought in a whole lot of cats. But I still call that soul music because for me, it's like we have an indie soul festival. So it's kind of like our goal is to make sure that we preserve the beauty in black music. Because I think it's gotten to the point, it's gotten trashed so bad that we have to, if we gave the people what they wanted, we be bringing in, what's my girl's name? The Stallion woman.
Meg the Stallion.
We be bringing in the Megan the Stallion type people.
Right.
Kind of like, I know like my kids, my nieces and man, you getting old. No, I'm not getting old.
No.
I just can't appreciate people disrespecting themselves, their community, and more important, our culture.
In addition, not to cut you off, but in addition to that, as a host, a festival host or a curator, you have to be conscious of the messaging. How messaging can transform the you want to have a safe and peaceful festival. You don't want to spark any fires, but if you have an artist up there that is that has the wrong message, it could potentially create chaos at the festival. So you got to be conscious of that as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what
you're talking physical violence. I'm talking the intellectual violence that goes on up here. So
right. No, I feel you.
But I think it's important I think it's really important to kind of emphasize that when we say this and when we say good for the people, it's really about capturing what matters here. Like you're talking about, we said Brand New being the soul music. I agree with that. It's also important to understand that some of the labels on our music were not put on there by us.
Yep.
By jazz as a label, we call the music we call jazz. None of the people that created it ever called it jazz. In fact, if you understand the definition of that word, where it came from, it has a real negative connotation. And it was changed from jazz, J-A-S-S, to jazz, J-A-Z-Z. And it was changed intentionally. It was given this negative connotation because it was black music, and that's just the truth. But I think when we start talking about soul music or what that really is, I mean, to me personally, I'll say that soul music really is music that comes from that genuine place of the soul and spirit. We have to, when we talk about music in general, you trace music from the standpoint of an anthropologist. Earliest forms of music did three things: worship some sort of God, chronicle some sort of history, and teach some sort of lesson. That's why you can't get out of kindergarten without knowing your ABCs through that song. Anytime you're trying to think about alphabetical order, you're singing that song in your head because that's how you were taught. And that's part of what it does. So when we start talking about, soul music, what does it do? We talk about hip hop, we talk about jazz, we talk about, before all these things even exist, you talk about field hollers and slave songs. You talk about all these different forms of music, where they come from. They were communicating something. And true music, and I don't care what anyone says about this because I'm just going to be me. True music in its purest form, I don't care what the genre is supposed to be a reflection of life, either the life that has already been lived, the life that's currently being lived, or the life that someone's aspiring to see lived. It's supposed to be a reflection of the life and times that you're in and what you choose and what you want to see moving forward. So what I always find interesting, specifically, now I'm going to go to jazz specific because that's my specialty. What I always find interesting at jazz festivals is how many jazz festivals we have out there that say this is the whatever jazz festival, and there's not a lick of jazz on it at all. None. You have everything but jazz. Or like you look at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, they had like Maroon 5 and U2 playing there. And I'm like, that's not it. So curating, I think the other aspect of curating that often goes overlooked is, when you are a big festival that is selling tickets, some of the people that, especially if you're sponsored by a major corporation, the goal isn't to curate good music. It's to sell. It's to make money. So when you're looking at festivals that the goal is to make, money, and they're like majorly sponsored, they're not independent from, that kind of money-making machine, you don't always get what you think you're going to get. And I'm not saying that's true of all festivals like that, but it's definitely true of some. And one of the reasons why it is like that, because what we're talking about, music, art, history, from the cultural significance, that's part of our intellectual property that some of us don't know how to own. We're quick to sell it, either intentionally or unintentionally, have it stolen, which has happened a lot and still happens, or after we put it out there, someone else takes it and acts like it was, and becomes more popular for it that doesn't look like us. And the reason why I bring that up is because when I look at like the festivals here in this area, when I look at Stone Soul, when I look at, when I look at the Indie Soul Festival, when I look at the jazz festivals that happen here in the Hartford area, I see what's supposed to be accomplished by these festivals being accomplished. When I go other places, not so much. And that's an important conversation for us in our communities, so we understand how to really, that this is our cultural asset, and we're responsible for preserving that asset to the best of our ability.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of times, like, I know when I talk about festivals or music events, I'm looking at it strictly from a black perspective. When you start talking about some of these major festivals, like, they call themselves jazz festivals, Newport Jazz, all that, there's no black folks involved in the organizational aspect of it. We come in as employees. If I look at a Stone Soul Festival, which has been around since 1989, I'm looking at black people who are doing this, and there's a social agenda which is at the forefront. In contrast to, if I look at the Springfield Jazz Festival, when John Osborne and the folks ran it from the neighborhood, there was a social aspect to it. When the other folks took it over after John left the scene, it just became a product. And to the point where you talk to Joe Solins, you talk to any of the musicians around here, they can't get any run. There's no burn. There's no social agenda. There's no preservation of black music. It's just, let's just exploit this so we can make this and we can bring in that. It's a little different. But I want to go back to my brother, Anthony Graham. What's happening, Red? Hip hop artist. Soul music is any story told from the heart, and it's a story told from a happy or sad tears. He goes on to say, all forms of music can be soulful if there's chill bump feel from a person's life told how he or she presents it musically. Absolutely. And I think that's who we are. It's no different than us having this conversation. You want to talk about soulful, you sit back and listen to the volume, tone, and context of what we're saying based on how we feel about the subject.
Exactly.
You add a beat behind it.
That's soul music.
But I think we also have to, like, to Anthony's point, I think what we also have to separate is that, most people in the modern day music industry machine don't have creative control. So, being able to separate what is soulful and what isn't always as easy for everyone. Like when you're not in it, or when you haven't been around it, or when you haven't been immersed in said culture, it isn't so easy for some people.
Which is why, Neef, we're bringing, try attempts to bring on folks who actually curate festivals,
right,
with our own agenda. Right. It's like, as we're talking about what we're doing, why we're doing, and then when we bring those other folks into the conversation, sometimes it takes away from what we're doing, because we know what they do. We know what they've been doing since the beginning of the recording age.
But the reason why I'm bringing that up in particular,
I'm listening,
is because one of the persons you mentioned, like Meg Thee Stallion, her latest song is all about being a thought.
A who?
Being a thought, which stands for that hoe over there.
Oh, a thought.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said a 5. My bad.
No,
Go ahead.
She got a whole song about being a thought that people are loving, and people are like, well, yeah, man, that's great. Now, what is great about being that hoe over there? I mean, I don't understand what's great about that personally. Especially when you understand what that really is and what that really means. So there are some people that, because they don't know any better, will think that what Anthony is talking about here is just as applicable to stuff over there. It's not the same.
And it's not.
Right. No.
It's comparing the way a chef would cook at a restaurant at McDonald's or one of the fast food joints, or somebody who owns their own restaurant. They put that tender loving care. They put in their mama's old recipes. It's different. You can't employ it, and you can't. That's why we do indie soul. Talking about the Indie Soul Festival, we're trying to find artists that move and think independently outside of mainstream, and we make a point of not bringing in folks who are still attached to labels. Because we're not looking for a commercial product. We're actually looking for artists, people who can, in the middle of a song, just stop and say, you know what? We're going to change this up right about here, and we're going to do this. I need that creativity. I need that level of creativity. When you talk about Megan Thee Stallion, you're talking about an employee of a music industry. Mm-hmm. She has a job.
And she has no control over how she's being portrayed. You know what I mean? The persona that's being portrayed in the media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, so sometimes I brought Megan Thee Stallion for a reason, but typically when people bring up rappers like that, I'm like, let's talk about Cyrock. Let's talk about brothers and sisters who put it down. I'm looking at Anthony Graham. He got a cut that I'm addicted to. If I had it right now, I would play it right now just to show people the difference. Man, there's some cats, man, when they spit, when they sing, they're singing from the gut. Hanif, I heard you play a week or two ago over at Dewey's. When you play, it's like, man, you didn't even know I was standing in front of you with a camera.
No, I did not.
You were in another world. I'm like standing right in front of you with the camera, right, literally in front of you. Like, brother, I didn't even know you were here. I'm like right in front of you, seeing right through me. And it's like you were in your own world.
It was in that zone.
Own sound. Yeah. You're staying within the framework of the band, but you were gone. And it's kind of like, I think it's important as curators of these types of events that we bring in artists that show people that it's okay to let go of reality and go into your own world and just create and just let the sound come out. I just think it's so critically important. That's why I vibe with Stone Soul when you talk about letting unknown cats on stage and letting them do what they do.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, we have a vetting process. We're gonna, prior to the actual Stone Soul Festival, we have a Springfield's Got Talent artist call. We're gonna have that at level 5. Okay. Dates are going to be coming up in both July and August prior to the festival. But that's our opportunity to network and build with these local artists in order to find, our mission is to bring the best talent, the best local talent to the community. So that's going to be our opportunity to kind of vet and kind of pick and choose these local artists that we're going to have, as part of our festival.
Okay. Yeah, that's what's up.
I want you to bring back that comment Anthony just put up for a second.
There it is.
Yeah, this is why I want to bring back that comment because, and you should know where I'm about to go with this too. This is why I want to bring up this comment because soulfulness is easily heard if they listen to words and not the aggressiveness of the beat. People just got to listen. I 100% agree with that. But then I also sit there and say, well, what about the music that doesn't have words? What about the music that is just straight instrumental? What do you say about that? Because I think a lot of the times we forget that there are a lot of genres of music out here, a lot of them. And to be clear, I'm not trying to pick on Anthony. To be clear, I'm saying this because this is a sentiment that I've heard a lot. And I'm like, well, what about all the other forms of music that don't have lyrics? I mean, there are djembe players that I know that I can listen to them play all day. And there's not a thing being said. But if you can't feel the soul in that, there's something wrong with you. I've listened to some of the great masters of jazz play and literally make me cry with what they're playing because you could hear their heart and their soul in it. And when we specifically talk about Black music, I think one of the big disservices that I see as not just a musician, as an educator, is not enough of us really know how deep the roots of Black music really are. We sit there and we'll say, oh, that rock stuff, that's white people music. No, it's not.
No.
That country stuff, that's white people music. No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
And I think until we really understand that, I mean, and I know there's a lot of ways, we talked about this before, there's a lot of ways that understanding can come about, but we have to understand the roots. You can't find, and I challenge every college class I've taught, and no one has been able to do so. I'm not a gambling man, but on this one thing, because I know no one can find me anything, I wager money. I'm like, show me one form of American music that doesn't have Black origins. No one's ever been able to do it.
Can I read a piece in the Smithsonian?
Sure can.
Just to also to address Anthony's point, he said soulfulness is easily heard when they listen to the words, not the aggressiveness of the beat. Sometimes and I'm with Hanif, man, when that merging of the two. When I think of Public Enemy and Terminator X, that beat was aggressive. It was just like it made you get hyped up, like
right.
And then he is right there with it, and they're like, it's like the music and the words are dancing together. I think there's a difference. I think sometimes you have to listen to the beat and not really focus on the words of some of the music nowadays, whether it's, R&B, hip hop, because some of the words are just like, what are you saying about yourself? It's just absolutely insane. But then you're right. If you listen to it and you move past the stereotypical, social perception of the music, you can get into it and vibe. But this is what the Smithsonian says about Black music. It says, describing the African-American influence on American music in all of its glory and variety is an intimidating, if not impossible, task. African-American influences are so fundamental to American music that there would be no American music without them. People of African descent were among the earliest non-indigenous settlers of what would become the United States, and the rich African musical heritage that they carried with them was part of the foundation of a new American musical culture that mixed African traditions with those of Europe and the Americas. Their work songs, dance tunes, religious music, and the syncopated swung remix rock rap music of their descendants will become the lingua franca of American music, eventually influencing Americans of all racial and ethnic backgrounds. They go on to say the music of African Americans is one of the most poetic and inescapable examples of the importance of their African American experience to the cultural heritage to all Americans, regardless of their race or religion. That's how vast, that's how deep, that's how textured our music is. It's to the point where you really can't get your arms around it. So it's just interesting. It's just that deep. And I just think when we talk about these curated events, I just think it's really important that we protect our cultural interests. Does that make sense? I think it's important that we protect the cultural interest of what it is that we're doing. When we talk from the food, when I go to the Stone Soul, the Caribbean Festival, the Harambe, Indie Soul, I go down to some of the festivals they have in Waterbury, Phil Bynum, Jazz on the Water down in New Haven. Oh my God, the combination of music and the food. And then as people walk, it's kind of like cats got that little soulful bop. It's like everything's like in sync. It's almost like if you listen to it in silence, you can still hear the music.
That's right.
So, and I just think it's one of those things that you can be as black as a midnight sky and still not understand the significance of what it is you're carrying, man. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about this for a second. Like when we talk about the history of American music and we talk about it from verifiable things that no one can dispute, you look at how, like, the first explanation I was ever given about jazz was, well, there was some stuff, there was music made out of slavery and it mixed with, the European harmony and all this other stuff. And this great music was born. No, that's not really how it happened, though, actually. That's
right.
Definitely not really how it happened. What happened were slaves had their drums taken away. Why were their drums taken away? Because a lot of people don't understand that, in many countries in West Africa, languages are not phonetic; they're oral. They're tonal. So when the enslaved folks, I keep saying slaves, and I don't want to say that. When those that were enslaved were brought to this country, they discovered that they were able to communicate with their drums over vast different distances. They were able to coordinate activities. So drums were taken away. One of the reasons why the Haitian Revolution was as successful as it was, their drums never got taken away. Well, that's another topic, but the drums got taken away. So what did they do? As they were forced to speak English, they started doing these Negro spirituals, Wade in the Water, which were code.
Right.
It was code. Since the drums were taken away, These were songs when slaves were when enslaved people were coming to other plantations, and hearing other enslaved. They knew what was being said, and this music morphed to different forms of blues. You have country blues, Delta blues, Mississippi Delta blues, city blues. All these different forms of music were things that you could go back and you can find a predecessor or counterpart somewhere on the African continent. You look at the banjo, its predecessor came out of Nigeria. So all of these different things that we're talking about with American music, man, it originates with us. Period. The very first rock and roll record ever created was created by an R&B group, Billy Ward and the Dominoes, and it's called The 60-Minute Man. Credited as the first rock and roll record ever.
Wow.
All rock and roll records around that time had a black face on them. So, like, when we understand the significance that you cannot find any punk music, black folks. The punk revolution was dealt with a black band. Same thing with metal. So you can't find one piece of music in this country that doesn't have something to do with us. So when we talk about the soul of the nation, we talk about the soul of the country, our culture, our music. I'm not telling everyone you got to go out and become a jazz fan. What I am saying is that we have to appreciate all of our cultural contributions, value all of our contributions, and big up anyone from our community that is doing part of our musical and cultural contribution right. Because our contributions were always oral traditions that then became codified at some point in time.
Okay. And you mentioned them plantation songs that they would make up, them Christian songs, them church songs. There was Roll Jordan Roll. There was Pray All Remember. These are probably some variations of these songs are still sang in churches today. Join the Angel Band, Rock on My Soul. We Are Marching On to Victory. My mom's church still sings that. There's so many. Go Down Moses. I'm sure people are familiar with that. There's so many songs. When you stop, listen to the words, as Anthony has alluded to earlier, and you pay attention to what they're actually saying, those are all slave codes telling people, listen, man, we out of here at such and such a time when the car was such a point.
Absolutely.
We gone. The innovativeness and the creativity in all this is just amazing, which is why it's just, again, I'm going to keep repeating. I repeat myself a lot. In order to control our narrative, we have to control our narrative. And we have to preserve everything that we have from a cultural context. Everything that Hanif just said is absolutely on point. Charles Stokes has a question on the sidelines. Let's see if I can get back over here. Here it is. Question for the panel. Before words, we communicated from the beat of the drum because of the Eurocentric social programming. We lost our way of hearing the soul of just music.
That's not entirely true.
Okay, talk to me.
The drum was used for.
I think you just explained that, but just recap it.
The drums were used for long distance communication, for religious services and things like that. But not all, but some languages from the African continent are not phonetic. When I mean phonetic, any language that we talk about, phonics, English, German, the Latin-based languages, a lot of those languages and some of the languages that are based on the continent, they're not phonetic, they're tonal. And because they're tonal, that means you can communicate through pitches. And the various drums that come out of West Africa, some of them you can have multiple pitches because you have, like, for example, the talking drum. If no one's ever seen one, one of the smaller talking drum, it's like a kind of look like an hourglass shape with some strings around it, and they hold it under the arm and they can squeeze the strings to create different pitches. So for the languages that were tonal in nature, those pitches you can communicate with. Because your language was tonal.
Right there, yeah.
There's there's a shorter one than that's used most often for communicating. And that shorter one, because of the way it's played, it reverberates over long distances. So it's not that every single language on the continent was tonal to begin with, because that's not true. But the languages that were tonal, you could communicate with drums over long distances, but they didn't only communicate with drums.
And I think if we were to have lost our way of hearing the soul of just music, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. I don't think half the folks who escaped those kidnappers and made their way to freedom would not have been able to do it, because just about everything they've done was also done through music and some type of coding. So
and I want to say, they replaced, when the drums were taken on this continent, they replaced them with those songs. Those songs still have tones. You know, they have those have notes. Those, when I say tones, those are notes that we're talking about. So those songs have notes. There were still ways to communicate using a phonetic language and pitches, but they were able to tuck hidden meanings in the songs that overseers, you know, and those who took slaves and bought slaves weren't able to understand. So we have to. And I'm just going to say it this way, because we say that this is an unfiltered conversation. We have to be real careful when we start making certain types of generalizations, because it's real easy to take some of these generalizations, pick them apart, and say that it's not true. We have to make sure that when we say certain things, especially when we're saying them in the public square to try to educate, that we are actually know what we're saying and we can back it up with provable sources. That doesn't mean you have to go to school and become a professor or get multiple degrees, because I know some of the smartest people I know are not that. But what I am saying is we have to be careful when we're talking about our culture. Just like our culture has been misrepresented by people who choose to profit off of us, we don't want to misrepresent it to one another and give people the wrong idea of who we are and what we are, and have people on a path that's not right. That's just as wrong as the paths that we always criticize. And I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
Well, damn. Now I'm scared to say something. Thank you, Neef.
No.
If I get your motivation and I'm wrong, then I'm gonna feel good. No, so I'm messing with you, bro.
but we have to say that, because if we're gonna sit there and say that we're for us and that we're trying to put a broadcast together and do this for us, we got to make sure that we have our stuff in a row, so that when we're out there telling everyone else about who we really are, that what we're saying is accurate.
Right.
And I think I'm going to go on a limb and say this. He's not assuming that we are doing that right now. He's saying that we have to be careful that we don't do that. And that anytime we're in a public forum and we're educating our own, we just have to make sure we stay on code and make sure we check ourselves for accurate information. Which is why, you know, everybody gets on these panels and make sure that, listen, man, if you disagree with something, push back. If you want to clarify something, push back. And clarify. That's what we're supposed to be able to do. We're supposed to be able to soul check each other at all times. So let's go to the sidelines real quick. Let's see what people are saying. I read Stokes' comment. Wow, where is it? Okay. Anthony Graham says, jazz are the words we speak now only because instruments started at first. Beats are rhymes to me. Before I put my own to it, the beat is a story to me. And depending on the beat, it gives me a way to come up with a concept. I hear you. I do the same thing when I'm rocking with a band, and it's kind of like if I'm just gonna go from the top, wherever they take me, I'm going with it. I got you. Stoke. Mona says it's a different kind of soul glow. Absolutely. Stokes was a question. Music history has been our way for us to vent and cry, etc. Absolutely. It's therapy. At least 97% of all types of music comes from us. Samples, #samples, all brown skin. Hanif knows a thing for real. Look at you, Hanif, getting compliments. What is this? Cut it out, Red. But I just think that's critical. This stuff is important. So when people say, well, if we're talking about music festivals, why is this relevant? I just think it's relevant because most of our music festivals consist of what? Music. Festivals consist of music. It's like 90% of what we do, man. Everything we do, you can't have a cookout without having music. So.
And I think people I think like it's also, we have to look at like the way these, even when we talk about the festival itself, the whole concept of the festival and what we do, in this country and in other places around the world where we see festivals, they're very much modeled after the things that were going on the continent before we were taken. Everywhere in the world that we were taken. Think about Carnival in Brazil and Trinidad. That wasn't a European invention.
Right.
That wasn't European invention at all. Think about Crop Over in Barbados, which is almost basically the same thing as Carnival. You know, so you got all these different things that are going on. And when we start seeing these festivals and this and the assembly of the music, we're going out there to enjoy. We're going out to do things. But once again, that's part of what music was meant to do in the first place. So when we trace that back, it's also something that as we become more and more aware of our music, of our culture, of what is really ours and what's really authentic, just as we push back on one another on this program, when we either hear something that's wrong or that we disagree with, man, we need to be pushing back at some of these festivals that are not putting out the stuff that should be there. And when I say should be there, I'm not talking about the stuff that we've already eliminated. I'm talking about when something is not authentic to what we say it's supposed to be. If we say that this is, you know, I'm not going to use any of these festivals that are not doing the right thing, but if we say, like, I'll give you a great example. The Greater Hartford Festival of Jazz is one of my favorite festivals, period. Not because I live here. People have come against the curators of that festival in the past and said, well, that's not a real jazz festival because you do all that other stuff, that's smooth jazz stuff, and then you do this R&B here and there. But I'm like, why y'all mad though? Like, what they're doing, like, all of this comes from that same root. They're not doing anything that doesn't come from the same root. You know, if it was coming from a different route, then that's one thing, but it's not. So we got to be careful, like, that our critics, when we start trying to criticize one another that look like us, putting on these festivals, that our criticism is for a valid reason. That it's not just because, oh, you didn't have what I like. Get over it. If it wasn't what you like, then don't go. But like, if it's something that's destructive, like Dee was talking about, intellectually destructive, or like what Tracy was talking about, physically destructive, yeah, we need to say something about that. It's our culture. And if we don't start taking ownership of our culture again, we're going to continue to have it twisted.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, y'all, we have 14 minutes to go. I definitely want to make sure that Tracy gets an opportunity. I'm going to double back over to Stone Soul Festival. And I really wanted to just talk a little bit about what's going to happen Friday night, if you can. I'm not sure if the running show is complete in terms of what's happening on stage, but
Right.
if you give us a summary of everything that's going to be happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday, why people should be there, how people can contribute, whether or not you need volunteers, any of that stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, Stone Soul Festival 2021 is going to be September 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The weekend prior to the festival is going to be our kickoff, which is going to be Saturday, August 28th. We're hosting our first annual Stone Soul Cruising Classic. It's going to be a car show. It's going to be held right at Smead Arena. That's the parking lot right at Blunt Park. That's going to be our kickoff to Stone Soul Week. Friday night is the first day of the actual festival. Oh, back to the car show. If anybody's interested in participating in that car show, they can contact me directly at 413-271-0080. You know, again, we have different categories from classics to the paid in full, you know, old school Europeans to, you know, the sports cars or what have you. So again, if anybody's interested in participating in the car show, just, you know, please give me a shout and we'll get you signed up. On Friday, the 3rd, that's going to be our jazz and blues night. So we're in the process right now. India Anderson is putting together that roster. India Anderson, along with Andrew Cade and a couple of other people that are on our team, they're curating that entertainment piece. So again, Friday the 3rd, that's going to be our jazz and blues night. Saturday, that's where we showcase our main act. Saturday evening, we're in the process again of booking that act as we speak. So just stay tuned for that information to come out shortly. In addition to the main act, we're also going to have all of the majority of our talent is going to happen on Saturday. So most of the local talent is going to participate in the Springfield's Got Talent segment. You know, we have all kinds of dance schools and karate schools and, you know, demonstrations from, you know, a bunch of local talent. So again, that's going to be the Saturday. And again, once we have that main act booked, do you know how that goes? Is the red tape that you have to go to finalize things. So we're in that phase right now. We're finalizing that booking. So hopefully we can get that out there, the information out to the community. Once that's available. Sunday we do Praise in the Park along with our gospel concert. So that again, that's going to be, I believe that starts at 11 a.m. Sunday's our short day. I think we end like around 1 or 2 p.m. on Saturday. Oh, I'm sorry, on Sunday. So India Anderson is the primary contact for the entertainment. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have some events leading up to Stone Soul. The Springfield's Got Talent segment. We're gonna have some artist calls at level 5. So if you're interested in performing in the Stone Soul, you can contact India at 413-314-3311. And it's funny you mentioned earlier the how food and music go together. And this year we're bringing something new to Stone Soul. We're doing our first annual Stone Soul cook-off. So in addition to the talent segment, we're going to showcase some local chefs. So we're going to have some initial segments or initial tryouts actually as a part of our way to kind of chop down the amount of people to 5. We're gonna have 5 finalists that are gonna showcase their barbecue skills live and in person at the Stone Soul on Saturday. So that's good. That's another part of Stone Soul that we haven't had before. Also, and again, as you can see, there's several moving parts to Stone Soul. So we got a lot going on that weekend. But we've also got the first annual Jay Griffin Jr. Memorial Round Ball Tournament. That's going to be on September 3rd and 4th. That's Friday and Saturday. That's going to be a middle school league that's being run by the VAR Click. Anybody interested in putting a team in, you can contact him at 413-459-5116. If you're looking for a vendor or to be a vendor at Stone Soul or to potentially be a sponsor for Stone Soul, you can contact the Stone Soul office at 413-737-1485. Also, I know I'm putting a lot of information out there, but I want to try to get as much out there as possible. We've got a health fair going on that's being led by Richard Johnson. If you're interested, if you're a healthcare agency local in the area, or you work in the healthcare field and want to set up a booth or be a part of our health fair, you can contact him at 413-205-1232. That's Richard Johnson, who's going to be heading up our health fair. Also on September 4th, that's Saturday, September 4th. That's going to be that morning we're doing our annual parade. And for the parade, I want to invite all of the community to come out and show out. We're looking for all businesses, local entrepreneurs, barbershops, beauty salons, restaurants, what have you, to come out. If that means you get a sticker, put it on your car, and come out there and ride in the parade to promote your business. No matter how big or small you are, we'd like to see you out there and representing our community. Again, you have festivals like the Puerto Rican Day, the Puerto Rican Festival downtown that gets major support, and unfortunately, with a Black festival, you would think with 32 years in that our parade would reflect that, but we need more support, I believe, within our community for the parade, because it's that's our opportunity to shine, and I'm encouraging everybody that's possible to come out and participate in that. And if you're interested in volunteering for that parade, again, you can contact the Stone Soul office at 413-737-1485. I think that's about it.
All right, it was you went on for a while. I was like, okay, he's still flipping.
Listen, I gotta try to get it out there, brother.
And what's the give me the dates again for the Stone Soul Festival?
September 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Okay, so it starts on my birthday. Everybody remember
Labor Day weekend.
All right. Let's see. We have about man, it's almost time. Good Lord. It's almost 7:00. So we got about a minute left, Hanif. Jeez. All right, and just to remind everybody, Springfield Indie Soul Festival takes place Saturday, August 21st. We have Ty Allen, a poet out of Brooklyn, New York, poet/singer. We have Crystal Center Brown, one of the 413's own. We have Toussaint, the Liberator, reggae act out of Boston, Mass. We have Surface, follow me with, shower me with your love. I got it all messed up already. MBS Malay, my Monday night co-host, is gonna be rocking. She's dope with a guitar and she can sing. My man, last night he performed at Smokey Joe's. Joe Solins was rocking with Hashima. We started calling him the Kraken. That dude is like a monster. So he'll be rocking. We also have the Delphonics. We have 2 stages. We got the Blair Rose. The stage 2 is the developmental stage. We got Blair Rose out of Seattle, Washington, Dolly Rock out of Seattle, Dre Zounds out of Springfield, Mulatto, Springfield, Ebony B out of Atlanta, Georgia, Pharaoh Bacon. Then we have this band out of New York. They're jazz, hip hop, soul. They're just soul. They just all that. They just dope. They're called True Culture. So we encourage people to come out. That's all day long, one day, Saturday, August 21st. There are other festivals happening in the area. There's the Springfield Veggie Fest coming up. Check out Lamont Stuckey and Veggie. Oh my God, went blank. The everything sauce. Veganish Foodies. Our attorneys, they're the organizer of that. Garden of Eden. So check in with them on the Veganish Festival. I'm not sure if the Caribbean Festival is happening this year in Springfield. What else is happening? Harambe is happening. Check out the organizers of Harambe to find out what's happening during Harambe. Down in Hartford, I know the Jazz Festival's coming up. I'll be there next week because they got Eric Roberson, and he ain't jazz, but he's dope. So I can't miss that. It's a free concert. So get down to Hartford to the Hartford Jazz Fest next weekend, y'all. If you have nothing else to do, I suggest you pack your bag and go there. Go ahead, Hanif. I see you about to say something.
Yeah, the Greater Hartford Festival Jazz, that is starting next Friday. Next Friday through next Sunday.
Yeah.
Also, weather permitting, the Monday night jazz, which is the Paul Brown Monday Night Jazz Series at Bushnell Park, weather permitting, starts this coming Monday, and it runs for 6 straight Mondays. In the event that the weather cancels it, it'll be streamed on the Hartford Jazz Society's web Facebook page. And also, a very shameless plug for myself. I will be back at Dewey's with my own band July 24th. I want to see Springfield there. That spot is the spot. We need to invest. It is owned by a young brother who is of the community, who saw a need, and instead of panicking because of the pandemic, put himself out there, got some investing, and opened up the spot. We really need to support this spot. And it goes beyond me playing there. I played there last night. I originally was supposed to be playing there last night. I was planning on going there last night just to be there. And then I got called 3 days before. I'm like, got called by a band leader. So you want to go play there? I'm like, sure. But that place is phenomenal. It's growing. It's developing. He's got plans of how to improve it. We need to support these kinds of venues. We need to support these places that give us somewhere to go, somewhere to hang out, and that are also promoting our culture in a variety of different ways. So I hope to see some of y'all on the 24th. I won't be with someone else's band on the 24th. It will be with my band on the 24th. So it's definitely going to be good.
That's what's up. All right, y'all. This is On Deck Live. We're here every Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Make sure you tune in. You never know what we're going to talk about or who we're going to have on. Just know that whatever we do, in the words of my man James Brown, we're going to definitely keep it funky. Quick shout out to John Osborne, the original founder, one of the original founders of the Springfield Jazz Festival. Was Hoop City Jazz?
He did the Mason Square Jazz too.
Yeah, but the one that he brought downtown, it was.
I think it was Hoop City.
I think it was Hoop City Jazz. Phenomenal. And we always remember the cat who actually really brought some of the stuff to the main stage and really made having festivals for us downtown actually, a possibility. He made it happen. The rest of us are just following suit. So shout out to John Osborne and the committee that worked with him on his earlier efforts. So with that being said, much love, much peace, much respect. Tracy Chappelle, thank you so much. To the Stone Soul Committee, thank you so much. Glad you joined us, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
All right. With that being said, Hanif, unless you got anything you'd like to add.
The only thing I want to add is, Mona, what's up? You should have been on here today.
I knew you said do it. I knew you said get her.
What's up, Mona? Come on. I mean, I'm glad as you hope that I'll be performing, but I hope you're going to be on this panel. So I couldn't leave without saying that.
Well, got to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing. All right.
Wait, one more thing I will say.
Go for it.
Anthony Graham, 2 things I want to say to you. Haven't met you yet, but I will say this. Your music is as fire as D is saying it is, and if he says it, I know that it is. We need to talk. And on top of that, one of the things we're talking about doing is with one of the other people I usually go after, Emma Genesee, since she's agreed to a topic. I think it would be a good topic for Anthony to be on too. So we have to be in contact with you when we do this other topic about our art and music and our intellectual property and why it's important for us to own it. I think Anthony might be good for that panel.
I agree 100%.
So
Red, I'm hitting you up. Last thing, I keep saying last thing. I feel like we're in church. And one last thing for the 25th time. At some point, I would love to see Red or Anthony get on stage and spit some bars to your music because the man's a monster.
That's why
Let's make that happen at Stone Soul 2021. How about that?
Listen, that's why I said we got to talk.
And be said, it's a done deal. All right, y'all, we out of here. This is On Deck Live. We'll see you next Sunday, 6 p.m.
Brothers, listen to me.
God's walked in.
Rejoice.